I'm so great to see you.
Great to
Yeah,
see you.
I'm super psyched.
I was going to attend this one with my in the dark,
With
I
your one,
do it in the dark, but I'll keep it ready in case it's helpful.
yeah, I use
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I use my manta mask all the time, and this is a great opportunity for us to talk just a teeny bit about this upcoming program that we're doing on Clearlight, non-duality, and dark retreat at the end of the month in June, starting in June 30th to July 6th.
Those are the dates over the 4th.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Internal fireworks.
Exactly. So we'll set off the 4th of July fireworks inside. And so let's start by talking a little bit about what do these three topics have in common? Clear light, non-duality, and darkness. So
Eh,
why don't we start with something like that?
Interesting. Um, well, what I'm happy about, especially, was the discovery by the materialist scientists of dark mass and dark energy, dark matter and dark energy, which was done by the kindness of Vera Rubin, a lady named Vera Rubin, who was observing the spinning of the Virgo galaxy, one of the galaxies nearby our Milky Way, and through all these complicated telescopes and etc. And discovered that the bright matter and the bright energy, which we think of as the only one, the stuff that you see, when something blows up or when a star shines or what we're looking at around us in this room, was not the only one. And there's another matter and energy and one that you can't see. And what that immediately gave me insight about is the issue of so-called clear light, which actually would be better translated in English as light clear, which is the way it's translated into Tibetan, the way Prabhasvara in Sanskrit originally was, and acel in those compounds of the word clear and the word light. So clear part is the main noun, and light is secondary, actually. Whereas when you say clear light in English, you think it's light. So it's bright matter. But actually, clear light is not bright. Clear light is transparent.
Beautiful.
So transparent mass and energy. So non-duality, if you have a non-dual experience of clear light, transparency, and it is an experience that you yourself are also clear light. You are sustained by the mass of clear light or light clear or transparency. You are sustained by that mass, and everything else is made of that mass. And if you're non-dual with it, you're clearly not going to see that clarity because it's transparent. And you are not going to see your own transparency. You're going to experience it in some different way. And as I like to say nowadays, you occupy it, but you don't actually see it. That connects to non-duality, therefore, in the sense that if you are non-dual, then you and whatever you see normally dualistically are not seeing it. You don't see that. You don't see yourself reflected in the mirror of an object that you see. You don't see the object as something separate from yourself. That's all dualistic. Non-dual, you somehow are connected to it, and what you see, that where it's separate, seems separate from you, is illusory. At the same time, you're occupying the same thing that it is, which is transparent matter and energy. In a way, you are completely one with it, but you don't need to see that. So this is analogous to looking at your face in a mirror. Or, for example, I see my face here in the side panel, or double panel thing, and yet it looks like me there. But of course, that's not me. It's an illusory reflection that looks like me. It isn't me. And I could point to the nose of this image that I see in the screen and say, not my nose, not my ear, not my beard, which is, by the way, new beard.
I like it, by the way.
I don't know. People do, but I'm sort of still uncomfortable a little bit with it, but it's nice
Yeah.
to say. Anyway, I know that's a digression. That's a non-dual digression. So it's not disturbing if I know that digression or not digression is the same invisible process, and it's a life force. Actually, it's all alive, you know. And even the illusion is alive, but and misperceived. But that I correct what I wrongly see in the mirror as if there was somebody else who looks like me there through a window. And I correct that immediately by knowing, almost inferentially, you could say, that that's just a photographic representation, right?
Yeah.
And indeed, I'm not seeing real you. I'm seeing a representation of you in your side of the screen. And so we correct the error of what we see in a mirror without thinking it, without having to think about it. So in a way, we non-dually experience what we misperceive as a real person through a window when we look at our face in the mirror, and we simultaneously know it's not us. And somehow that is the non-dual correction.
Yeah.
That we don't have to think about in a separate way.
Yeah.
So that, of course, that's an analogy to being non-dual with everything, where you are just one with it, and you can sustain within that, you can sustain the illusory appearance.
That's beautiful.
But then apparently, if the illusory appearance has something negative about it, where you're seeing an enemy, which is in this case not the case, but you're seeing an enemy, you're seeing a threat, you're seeing, you just hurt yourself bumping into something. And yet, if you're non-dual, that sort of doesn't happen at the same time it happened. And this is inconceivable. That doesn't, what I just said doesn't make sense to us in the language, which is always dualistic. It's matter or mind, it's yes or no, and yet non-dually, you're beyond that kind of linguistic ability to capture that. But that's,
Bob, let me interrupt for 1 second, because
finally we get to the dark. Well,
yeah, exactly. That's what I was just going to say, to the dark.
Then, by being in the dark, connecting to the dark mass and energy, by putting on your blindfold, or whatever other way, being on a dark retreat in a totally dark space for some period of time, you begin to realize that that is its own mass and energy. And in a way, you sort of have the opposite of the bright mass and energy. And then you find out that you have brightness in your own mind. So it turns your mind inward, and you find the brightness in your mind. So that nudges you in the direction of the non-dual thing, which we can't even say anything about, that we couldn't say the opposite about. So therefore, that's beyond the limit of language. So the dark retreat is indispensable, just like for the scientists who thought they were about to capture everything in bright matter and energy and have the grand unified theory, blah, blah, blah. They actually ran into 10 times more mass and 10 times more energy, at least. It may be 100 times more. You can't see. And this has thrown them for a loop, although they never admit it's a real loop, but it is. Yeah. So that's the dark.
Yeah. And let me say one thing about this. This is really great.
Please.
Where we want to take it. Because one of the things that the dark retreat does is it makes you, because I've been doing this for 29 years, it makes you transparent to yourself. And so the enough transparency comes into play. And what it does, you intimate exactly where darkness can take you. You know, as the mind falls into itself in dark retreat, wrong, Bob, self-fall, the mind falls from exactly these points, challenging who you think you are, where, you know, you're looking at the nose and all that. Well, in the dark, there is no nose to look at. And so you fall through the dimensions of who you think you are in deeper dimensions of who you really are. And then this is where it gets so brilliant, Bob, is because you discover that there is no darkness within, there's only light unseen. And so we go into the dark and we remove all exogenous, external, distracting stimuli. The analogy I use, and I'm curious how this lands with you, Bob, it's a little bit like the discoveries of the Hubble telescope and the Webb telescope. If you want to see into the origins of the universe, go as far away as you can from distracting light pollution. And then you take the, in this case of your mind, it's not a telescope, it's an Innerscope. And so you go deep into a sensory deprivation situation where all light pollution, distraction is removed. That allows you, just like the Webb telescope, to concentrate, focus the mind in upon itself. And instead of peering to the beginnings of the universe, you peer into the beginnings of reality itself and the nature of the mind. So this is what's so bloody brilliant, where everything you say then can become your direct experience. You literally, this is the best saying, you literally see for yourself by going temporarily blind. And this is the genius of the dark medicine, don't you think?
And from our other point about death, which has been our stick quite a lot in all our past work, then if you look at the three intuitions, or they have various names, right? As you descend from coarse matter, earth, water, fire, wind, space, the five elements, as they say in the Indo-Tibetan science, Indian and Tibetan inner science, then you go to luminance, radiance, and immanence, those three, which are a white light, infinite white light, infinite reddish light, orange reddish light, so moon and sun, and then an infinite black light. Then that black light is like the dark retreat. That's what you touch in the dark. And then they say there's the clear light, as we translate it in English, but in Sanskrit and Tibetan, they called it the light clear. So that's the transparency, which you can never see. So by the way, if any guru or anybody says, I saw clear light, they didn't.
Right, exactly.
You know that they didn't, because it's the one thing you don't see, but you are it. You be here, be there, so to speak, because it's everywhere and it's everything. And it's not nothing, it's everything. And then the absolute for the materialist is that experience of the dark light, the black light, and they think that, like when they fall asleep even, they think they're having a rehearsal for death. And they think there's a death state opposite the life state. Whereas what when you go non-dual into Clearlight is that it's all life. And the dark is just the boundary. It's really the boundary. It's not nothing. It may seem like nothing when you're still used to finding objects. But actually, as you let go, you realize that it's not, because you don't stay there. So you're alive to the clear light, and then the clear light is all the illusory stuff is simultaneously the clear light, which is inexpressible, right?
That's so important, Bob.
Yes. So that's cool. And what was that going to say? Yeah, so by the way, what is discovered that the Hindu people, the dualist ones, and I think maybe the Buddhist Theravada people, although they don't use the three gunas, but they know about them because it's very much in Indian culture. Buddha was born in Kapilavastu, the town of the Sankhya, great philosopher, Kapila. So there's always that connection. And the three gunas, which are sattva, rajas, and tamas, that's the tamas. The dark retreat is learning about tamas. So we think, tamas, that must be like death, or that's inertia, or that's darkness, or that's what we're scared of, right? Because we think that's the opposite of light, which is life, which we associate with. But the light that's the opposite of the dark is still not the clear light, the ultimate light, the infinite light. And, I think Einstein knew that, and also Spinoza. But Einstein created this fake scam called E = mc squared to pretend that somehow infinite light was something mathematically achievable. But infinity is not achievable. On the other hand, infinity is not excluded. It's kind of a good analogy. Like we're all in the infinite as well as being finite. But we think, no, we're finite, and infinity is it's out there, And the other thing I thought of when you mentioned about the birth of the universe, which from Buddhist point of view, the universe is beginningless, actually. Right. Local regions can have a kind of emanation of a livable space or not within this kind of a body. But divine bodies can live in empty, what we think of as empty space. They don't bother with them. And also apparently aliens. The horrible alien lives in empty space outside the spaceship. Remember, it's clinging onto Sigourney's spaceship in Alien 3 or whatever it was, and landed on Earth. Never mind. So bad things too. But I was thinking that, they think that the universe is finite. The scientists have always been acting like it's a finite thing because beyond a certain distance of light years, you can't see. So it would take, the things, the light can't reach you. So then they think, well, therefore that means we are finite universe. That means there's nothing beyond. But the dark is not nothing. It's
Right.
infinite energy in the dark, actually, more than in the bright. But
Exactly.
that's also what you find. So therefore, you're like flip out about dark energy, and that's so neat. I think it really is neat to know
Yeah.
that. Wait,
And so let's talk just a little bit about what people will be experiencing when they come and
yes,
join us in Menla. You know,
yes,
Bob and I will be sharing the platform. I'll be delivering a lot of material about, well, how do you actually do dark practice? So we'll be doing it with masks on. We'll have 4 specially prepared rooms where people can go in for up to an hour at a time. I have a very, very skilled guy joining me as well, who's a really seasoned practitioner. So you'll be held very carefully and comfortably introduced to the power of dark medicine and given basically everything you need to know to get started with this amazing practice, which is now coming into light in this day and age.
wow,
You start this practice at home. And so we'll be talking about gray retreat, weaving in and out, experiencing it. Bob and I will be involved in also some dialogue presentations, kind of like what we're doing here. So we'll be doing individual riffs, and then we'll be getting together to talk about this. And then obviously lots of time for Q&A and
yes,
discussion. So people can really deeply understand why is this stuff so important? How does it apply to our life? And here's the thing that I want to get into. We won't do it now, Bob, but when we at the retreat itself, I want to introduce to the people who are participating the extraordinary power of darkness and dark immersion is a
yes.
potent antidote for the upcoming AI revolution. AI versus AE. So is it artificial intelligence or authentic experience? And so what darkness shows, it's part of what I'm calling the human reclamation project. How to
I,
find how to use dark immersion to find meaning, purpose, and relevance in the light of AI. And so this will be a way to introduce people to qualities of the human condition that AI can never replicate. And therefore, if you feel like you're going to be left behind by this emerging light revolution of artificial intelligence, well, intelligence is not the same as consciousness. Information is not the same as experience, and knowledge is not the same as wisdom. And so if we understand this, then it's like, oh my gosh, these are all qualities that depth, interiority, represented in the archetype of darkness,
yeah,
represent. And then all of a sudden now it's like, okay, we can use AI as a very powerful tool. It cannot take away from us these fundamental, irrevocable human properties that only the human condition can bring about. And I think it's a wonderful counterbalancing gesture for this. So again, it shows once again how this immersion into dark has tremendous immediate applicability. So Bob, I can't wait to join you in a couple of weeks to do this.
that'd be
End of
great.
June to
Can't
first week of
wait.
July. We'll do some 4th of July celebrations within our own minds in the dark.
It's
And
I will, I will leave these deep dark things to to your guidance, Andrew, and I look forward to learning from you about them. And I will just help people rearranging the illusions a little bit so that they have their focus toward the dark thing. That will be my role.
love
And
it.
I think that's really exciting. Me too. I'm really looking forward to it.
Wonderful, Bob. So thank you all for joining us in this brief little riff on what Bob and I are going to be talking about. Can't wait to see you in a couple of weeks, and do come and join us. All the
Yes,
best.
come and join us. We'll see you out here amongst the trees and in between being in the dark. All the best.
All the best.